I answered the door to a funeral director holding my mother's ring. The woman we buried yesterday wasn't your mother. The man standing on my porch was wearing the same black suit I'd seen him in 24 hours ago when he handed me a box of tissues and walked me through casket options. Now he was holding a small velvet pouch and his hands were trembling. I grabbed the doorframe because my legs stopped working. What did you just say? He stepped closer and lowered his voice. During the embalming process, we remove all jewelry. Standard procedure. But when my assistant cataloged your mother's ring this morning, she noticed something. He opened the pouch and dropped the ring into my palm. I knew this ring. My father gave it to my mother on their 30th anniversary. Her initials were engraved inside the band, except when I tilted the ring toward the light, the initials weren't hers. They read LMK. My mother's initials were DRK. I invited him inside because I couldn't have this conversation standing up. He explained that after finding the discrepancy, he checked the fingerprints they'd taken for the death certificate against the ones on file from my mother's nursing license. They didn't match. Not even close. The woman in our facility, he said carefully, is approximately the same age and build as your mother. Similar hair color. But she is not Dorothy Klein. I asked him if he was absolutely certain. He pulled out his phone and showed me a side-by-side comparison of the prints. Even I could see they were completely different patterns. My brain kept trying to reject what he was telling me. I had identified the body myself. I had looked at her face and said, yes, that's my mother. But the room had been dim, and I'd been crying so hard I could barely see. That's when I remembered something that made my stomach turn. My brother Kevin had been the one to call me about her death. He said he'd found her unresponsive at her apartment and called 911, but by the time paramedics arrived, she was already gone. Kevin had handled everything. He'd suggested the funeral home, picked the casket, even recommended we do a closed casket service because she wouldn't want people seeing her like that. I'd been too devastated to question any of it. Now, every decision he'd made felt deliberate. I called Kevin's number, straight to voicemail. I called again, same thing. I texted him asking where he was. The message showed delivered but not read. The funeral director watched me spiral and asked if there was anyone else who might know what happened. I told him to wait and ran upstairs to my mother's room. She'd been staying with me for 2 months before she died. I kept her door closed because I couldn't face going through her things yet, but now I tore through everything. Her medications were still lined up on the dresser. Her reading glasses sat on the nightstand next to a half-finished crossword puzzle, and tucked into the drawer of her nightstand was a manila envelope I'd never seen before. Inside was a life insurance policy dated 6 weeks ago. The beneficiary was Kevin. The payout was $800,000. My hands went cold. I flipped through the pages and found the signature line. My mother's signature was there, but it looked wrong. The letters were too neat, too controlled. My mother had early-stage Parkinson's. Her handwriting had been shaky for years. This signature was forged. I drove to Kevin's apartment with the funeral director following in his own car. I pounded on the door for 5 minutes before the building manager let me in. The place was empty. Not just empty like he wasn't home, empty like he'd moved out, closets bare, furniture gone. The only thing left was a pizza box on the kitchen counter and a receipt stuck to the bottom. The receipt was from a storage facility 30 miles north, dated 3 days ago. I took a picture of it and called the police. The officer who answered didn't seem to understand the urgency until I explained that my brother may have faked our mother's death, buried a stranger, and was about to collect nearly $1 million. She told me to stay where I was. I didn't listen. The storage facility was one of those 24-hour places with electronic gates. I told the attendant I was looking for my brother's unit and described him. She checked her system and said he'd rented unit 314 under a different name, paid 6 months in advance, cash. She couldn't let me in without authorization, but she did let me look at the security footage from the past week. I watched Kevin arrive 4 days ago with a moving truck. He unloaded boxes for an hour. And then, at the very end of the footage, I saw something that made me grab the counter to keep from falling. A woman climbed out of the passenger seat of the truck. She was wearing a blue cardigan I recognized. She was walking slowly, like her joints hurt. She was very much alive. It was my mother. I showed the footage to the police when they arrived. They obtained a warrant within the hour. When they opened unit 314, they found my mother sitting on a cot, confused and dehydrated but breathing. Kevin had convinced her that I was trying to put her in a nursing home against her will. He told her he was protecting her. He told her to stay hidden until he could fix everything. She had no idea about the insurance policy. No idea about the stranger buried in her name. No idea Kevin had been planning this for months. The woman in the casket turned out to be a homeless woman who had died of natural causes. Kevin had paid someone at the morgue to switch the bodies and paperwork. Kevin was arrested at the Canadian border with a bag full of cash and a one-way ticket to somewhere without extradition. My mother is back home with me now. She still doesn't fully understand what her son tried to do. I'm not sure I do either.